Here we are.
Okay, well, welcome to EEA's third loosening lockdown webinar. My name is Francois Matarasso. We will just wait until everybody is settled in, because it takes a moment for everybody to come in the room. If you're arriving, please use the chat box to say hello to everybody that's here. To say, because you won't be able to see all the other people who are here. So the best way to do that is just type in your name and where you're from, and then the chat box will be open all the way through, and is a really good way to share comments and to ask questions of the panelists. Great, thank you very much. I can see people starting. We'll give it another minute or so, just to make sure that everybody's settled in.
Oh, I've got some of my my lot in here. I can see.
Oh, very good.
Coming in. Some rural tourists.
It's nice to have the perspective of the rural areas. It hasn't been here so much in the past, so I'm looking forward to hearing that. I must say I'm in awe at Daniel's and Emergency Exit Art's ability to find amazing speakers for these sessions, because this is the third one and he keeps bringing together wonderful people. So it's really great that you all make the time to be here.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
How are we doing? If people are still coming in, we'll give it another 30 seconds and then we'll get started, because we don't have so much time. Okay, it's starting. I think it's maybe slowing down now. Okay, good. Well, welcome, as I said, to Loosening Lockdown number 3. I'm Francois Matarasso. I chaired the last 2 sessions for Emergency Exit Arts. And we're going to try something different today, because I think it's important to reflect what Emergency Exit Arts is all about. Emergency Exit Arts has been working with young producers, young people, giving them training and capacity building and introducing them into the arts world for some years. And so we're going to do that in this series of webinars. And so today I'm really happy to be able to introduce my 2 co-chairs, who are Thelma Obirai, who's been a trainee producer for the past 2 years and a consultant helping to design the new process for upcoming young ambassadors. Say hi, Thelma.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all.
And Shazia Bibi is a multidisciplinary creative working as a performer, writer, producer, currently working with Bradford Producing Hub. Shazia.
Yep. Hi everyone, it's great being here.
Okay, so between the 3 of us, we're going to try and marshal this extraordinary array of talented and gifted people we have on the panel today. Before we go on, I'm going to hand over to Alex Humphrey, who is a board member of Emergency Exit Arts, just to welcome you on behalf of Emergency Exit Arts. Alex.
Great, thank you very much, Francois. If you'll bear with me, I'm just going to share a screen, just a few slides. Obviously, the main focus today is going to be people talking. The host needs to allow me to share some slides with you. Is it possible, I think, Pablo, to sort that out?
This will be fine now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here we go. So yes, just adding to Francois' comments, welcome everybody to the third of our loosening lockdown series. And I think the most important thing to say at this point is, we've all been blown away and really humbled by the number of people who've chosen to join us on these webinars. So look, profound thank you. We're really humbled by that, and we're so glad that these are proving valuable. I'm sure that today's will be just as fun, as vibrant and useful as the last couple have been. Now, and those last two, they're available on the EEA website if you want to check them out, highly recommended. And briefly, the first one, great lineup of people, just starting to discuss this question of, how the outdoor arts sector can respond and what moving through the stages of lockdown and moving out of lockdown might look like. Overwhelming message coming back about the value of starting small, starting local, building on some of the great community fellowship and togetherness that we've been seeing. The loosening lockdown seminar number 2 was much more focused on the practicalities and kind of the operational and strategic and financial considerations of starting to produce art in the current situation. Various points covered from health and safety through to insurance and the fact that none of us have a hope in hell of ever being insured against coronavirus, but hey, we follow the government guidelines, it should be okay. Interestingly, it was kind of discovered during that discussion that actually there's quite a wide diversity of responses among local authorities and local areas with and we heard from Taki, our friend here in Greenwich, where EEA is based, about Greenwich's very bullish plans, actually, to reopen the Greenwich World Heritage Site to visitors, but also that other local areas are taking a far more cautious approach. We were interested to note the new Visit Britain kite mark for a safe event or a safe venue that's being developed. And that's one we'll all be keeping our eyes on. And we were also, warned that that money for the arts and culture, might not be top of the government's list. Surprise, surprise. But that basically puts the onus on us to do what actually we're very good at doing in the arts, and that's demonstrating the value of what we do against other people's agendas. And there was a particular focus in this session around the role of the arts and helping with the mental health crisis, which I think many of us suspect, is brewing behind closed doors right now due to the situation. And just a quick run through some of the things that, in the intervening period between that last session and now, some of the things that we've been keeping our eye on at EEA, and I'm sure you have too. I'm sure these things are going to come up in our discussion today. Obviously, there's a lot of debate going on about how one can introduce events safely. A number of resources that you can access via our website, or you probably have plenty yourselves. Obviously, there's very live debate at the moment at government level and its respective task forces, looking at whether 2 meters might become 1 meter, whereupon, clearly, the feasibility and the cost of putting on events, both indoors and outdoors, suddenly becomes, much more plausible. So that would be a very important step forwards for the sector. We've also at EEA been, really delighted to see some of the responses to situations, some outdoor arts projects being brought forward in a variety of locations, very inventive ways, including, many by organisations who are, part of our friends and family at EEA, and do check out some of these links if you like. This PowerPoint will also be on our website afterwards. Again, a sort of selection of some of the wonderful things that are happening, building on that kind of communal sense that I think we've seen up and down the country. The arts very much being an important part of that, and I know that some of the people behind some of these things are on this webinar, so welcome to you. But of course, also the world has not stopped changing, and in many ways, I don't think after coronavirus passes, we're not going to go back to the way things were before. And in many ways, that's positive. And of course, at EEA, we, like all of you, will have been watching very closely, very carefully, thoughtfully, and supportively at the global protests that have been sparked by the killing of George Floyd in the US. And perhaps that's something that's going to come up in this conversation. It's something that we are going to be discussing our response to at EEA, in fact, at our board meeting this evening. And finally, just say again, just riffing on this theme of, the future is not going to look like the past. Just an interesting thing to throw in, the World Economic Forum has launched a big initiative called the Great Reset, where it will be inviting some of the world's leaders and key thinkers and economists to be drawing together their perspectives on what the future might look like. And I understand that is going to culminate in a major online event in January 2021, but with quite a program of activity in the build up to that. So again, something to keep an eye on. We certainly will be. That's the end of kind of the EEA perspective. Obviously, this series is going to continue after today. So, we're always very open to hear from you out there as to what you would find it helpful for us to draw people together to talk about in future series. So please let us know, info@eea.org.uk. The next one is scheduled for 2 weeks from now, Wednesday the 24th, and there'll be ones beyond that. 10 a.m. tomorrow, I'm told, is the deadline for this event, which is being recorded. I hope we're happy with that. Going up on the EEA website. And we want these events to be as accessible as possible to everybody. If you do feel able to make a donation, obviously we appreciate that. So thank you very much. Really looking forward to today's discussion.
Great. Thank you very much, Alex. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the panel we have today, and they're going to present themselves and say a little bit about who they are, and also say something that they think that they're going to take away as a positive thing from the last few weeks. So, Pax Nindi. Sorry, you're on mute still.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here and also sharing a stage with very, very talented people that I know. My name is Pax Nindi. I'm the Chief Executive of Global Carnivals, which is a network for carnivals globally. I'm also the Vice President of the World Carnival Commission based in Canada. And I'm involved with a lot of carnivals. The one in Quarry Road Carnival, I'm a board member. Then I'm a chairman of Culture Mix, which is an MPO that specializes in steel pan and training. I used to run the Hackney Carnival, which I've run for 7 years. And at the moment, we are actually on something which I'll be presenting here, which is to do with what we are doing to address the whole situation. In terms of what I would take away from what happened to us, personally, I think there's a lot of things that I would take things. I think it always happens to be like negative things happen so that we can achieve positive things, which is really sad, which is what's actually brought up the Black Lives Matter, where we've all been told to sit in the house. And then all of a sudden, anything that happens will be much more sensitive than before. So all of a sudden, we ended up with a positive thing, even though it's quite a negative thing that caused it. So I think in terms of this experience here, I also have this thing where I think I've been saying to somebody, if somebody outside there is lying down with blood on their head and so on, I will be running to an interview. I've got no time to help them. But now, the interview is on Zoom. So if somebody happens to them, I'll help them. So that's some of the things that I think have come out of this.
Great. Thanks, Pax. Holly.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. My name's Holly. I'm the director of the National Rural Touring Forum. And if you don't know, we are a network of rural touring schemes and programming hubs and artists and promoters and venues all across the country. We have 400 members, and we are a national portfolio of the Arts Council England. And probably, maybe when you think of rural touring, you might think of village halls. And you're right, in many ways. There is a lot of village hall touring that goes on in rural touring. But it's also pubs, and it's also libraries and community spaces. And there's also a lot of outdoor work that happens as well. And in fact, outdoor work, Sally is here from Applause Rural Touring, which is in the southeast. And we have, as a network, as a group of programmers and organisations, we have devastatingly cancelled 1,000 shows in spring. That's just happened, and it's looking similar in autumn at the moment. So those are the things that we have been discussing and working on over the last few months now. But it's a brilliant network. It's all about professional work and professional performance. I invite anyone to come and see what we do.
Great. Thank you very much. Daze.
Hi, I'm Daze Aghaji, and I'm a 20-year-old climate activist. I work as Extinction Rebellion's Youth Regenerative Culture Coordinator. I'm also known for running as the youngest person who actually ran for the EU Parliament as a candidate. Regenerative culture is one of the many things that are so amazing, but so little people know about it. It's basically radical well-being. It's a way that we learn to take care of our earth and our community, and really take the way that we relate with one another and treat the earth in the same way. Yeah, I think that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daze. Clive.
Yeah, I'm Clive Lyttle. I'm artistic director of an organisation called Certain Blacks. We support diverse artists to do weird stuff. Work from the margins. We do a lot of live art. We do theatre. We work with circus artists. We do a lot of jazz, spoken word. We work with organisations like Lyrics Organics. And we're also moved into doing outdoor work as well. So we presented an outdoor festival in partnership with Royal Docks, a part of Join the Docks last year. I live in Newham. I'm working with London Borough of Newham currently to do an online real life festival coming up in August. I mentioned that because it's got its challenges, etc. And living in Newham, what are the good things to come out of all of this? I live near City Airport, and I've got no airplanes now. I haven't had airplanes in months. It's just so different. But also these sort of things, the webinars. I took part in Lyrics Organics response to the Black Lives Matters last week, and it is the ability for groups to come together and reach audiences online really quickly and be really reactive, which is something which would be really good to keep when we're not actually glued, when we don't have to do the webinar stuff. So, so I'm looking forward to it, because I can probably do without a bit of Zooming as well. So that's us.
Great, thanks, Clive. Sam.
Sorry. Hi, sorry, turned on the wrong thing. Hi, I'm Sam Roddick I'm an artist and activist, and also a trustee of a foundation called the Roddick Foundation, which is a radical foundation that I think is probably one of the key foundations showing courage in terms of what it's funding and how it aligns and also supports frontline activists and kind of key issues. I started off as a, like an activist, grassroots activist. So I've worked with grassroots activists all of my life, and I can guarantee that, or as we know, as history says, real change comes literally from the ground, and all new thoughts and thinking are grassroots, and also culture is the compass of philosophies that join up, you know, our society and heart into kind of being better and performing better. So I'm really excited to be here. The key areas that I'm working with key activists. I think I have the privilege of working with amazing activists, amazing creatives. I'm working with doctors and nurses and frontline workers who are exposing what's going on with the PPE and also like the systemic racism within the NHS and how that actually is, you know, physically actualized. I'm working with indigenous rights activists right in the front line in Brazil, who are probably like really the keepers of where we need to go and actually defending you know, people globally. And I'm also working with the regenerative agroecological food and farming movement within the UK, fighting for land justice and food justice. So within that, you know, the key areas is always women. It's always racial inequalities, and it's always gender, and it's always economic injustice. That without changing and addressing everything from those perspectives, no change can happen. So that's me in a nutshell. Thanks,
Okay.
and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you, Sam. And we'll just go back to Alex to round off.
Sure. So yes, we're not being an EEA trustee. I'm a consultant and business advisor, work with a variety of arts and heritage organisations. I think for me, you know, one of the most amazing things from the current situation is that, you know, I've worked in the arts for 20 years, and throughout that time, you know, there's always been funders and commentators talking about how the arts really needs to maximise digital to make work and to engage with audiences, even develop revenue streams, you know, and you know, the sector, you know, apart from some bright sparks of best practice, the sector's really not maximised opportunities through digital. And, you know, I think finally, you know, we're accelerating into that, which is wonderful to see. You know, certainly audiences out there are now showing they're really keen to participate via streaming, you know, online gallery and museum visits, online audiences for performances, you know, crafting, collective crafting, art boxes. It's been fantastic to see. I would be delighted if anyone on this webinar has any data about the uptake or indeed the kind of revenues that might be generated for the few paid for platforms or people seeking donations. But it really feels like a turning point for me, and I totally acknowledge there are issues around access to technology, but generally I see this as a big opportunity, and I'm really keen to see how we as a sector can maintain kind of the immediacy one can have connecting with an audience digitally, as we then translate into being able to doing stuff in person collectively again.
Thank you very much, Alex, for rounding off the introductions. My first question is actually for Pax, and I thought it would be appropriate because you're very well versed, especially with your global understanding of being a carnival artist. I just wanted to get an insight into how carnival artists are responding to the challenges of social distancing and the uncertainty of lockdown, because we know summer is the time for carnivals.
I'll look myself again. Thank you. Yes, Carnival, just like any other art forms, have been affected by Carnival, but by the virus. But as you know, most of our work in Carnival and festivals is outdoors. So in terms of actual struggling, I think we're struggling more than somebody who normally works from home and so on. The second thing is, I think most people are not aware that a majority of the people involved in Carnival are volunteers. So they do it as part-time thing. And then there is a majority of the artists who actually got big bands who do Carnival, strictly just really doing Carnival, where it might be just selling their costumes and so on. So these are the people being hit hard. The other thing is, I just heard Alex talking about new technology and how difficult it is for some people to have it or not. Now, in terms of the results of what's come out of this is most of the Carnival people, majority of them, especially the Caribbean Carnival, these are elders, you know, they struggle using the internet. They struggle to know how to deal with the email, let alone say to them, check my thing as a webinar and so on. They got no clue about all that. So those been weaknesses in Carnival, but what's happened now is majority of the carnivals that I'm involved in, including Corey Road Carnival in Oxford, then the Culture Mix and the Hackney Carnival, and even Notting Hill, they are doing virtual carnival. Now it's quite interesting because that virtual carnival is the only way we could do these carnivals, but what it is we are packaging what we normally do and put it out there. There is some people who are making, like in Hackney, we gave the groups £200 each to make something at home, and then we are going to upload it as a Hackney Carnival. That's what you're going to see. But those people to do it at home as though they've been struggling because some of them, most of the majority of Carnival is based around volunteers. So there's a lot of people, I know a lot of groups who normally send very, very good videos to do their work, but now they can't do it because there's always these young people from the college helping out. Now all of a sudden these elders are stuck by themselves at home. So I think it's quite a challenge, but what I've noticed as a benefit from all that is that those elders who are scared of the website and so on, but because they have to do this video, that's got a deadline, they're having to call me and say, please help me. And the beauty of all this new technology, got like Zoom, we having spent time showing each other how it works, then it works. Otherwise, a lot of the Carnival groups, especially, you know, you're talking about, Holly was talking about in the rural areas. I mean, there's a lot of carnivals out there that normal happen, but some of these, especially the English one, they are based around raising funds for charity. That's most of the English carnivals that I know. That's what they do. And this particular case, there won't be any of this money being raised. And I know quite a lot of big carnivals like Glastonbury and Bridgewater. They raise quite a lot of money. So without Carnival, they are going to be struggling, not the Carnival, but those people who benefit from those particular activities. The final thing I'm going to say is being based in Carnival, most people see it as a one-day event, and also just see just something that passed through their door with people banging steel drums, and that's it. But to tell you the truth, you know, Hackney, we did a financial impact. It worked out. The majority of the people there, they look out for Carnival all year round. And when it comes, it just really gives them a lot of joy. And some of them actually have their relatives coming from Canada to sit down with them and make the costume so that they can take part in Notting Hill or in Hackney. So most of these things is going to be lost. But as I say, majority of the Carnival people usually have got other jobs. So some of them are fellow now and some of them are really completely stuck. So that's why I think something like what we're doing in Hackney is actually benefiting a lot of the carnivals. And this is also, I think, globally, it's the same thing again, because I'm involved. I am the artistic director for the Carnival in Ghana, Accra Carnival. It's the same thing. I think, you know, people are being told to stay home, and it's just been really quite difficult for people. But as I say, we are learning new tricks while we are logged in. I'm broadcasting now. I've actually got a proper broadcast channel, just learning the last 2 weeks. So that's some of the things.
Thank you very much, Pax. And now I've got a similar question for Holly. Now, Holly, I've seen your work and I think your form of artistic expression is quite amazing and unique. But unfortunately, there's been quite a significant amount of data that shows people aren't ready to go out into crowds yet. And this may have affected the rural areas. So I wanted to understand how you and the arts are responding to lockdown in the rural areas.
Sure, thank you. And I forgot to say the positive thing as well when I introduced myself earlier, and that ties into this as well. So what we've been discussing, it's been one of the byproducts of lockdown, which has been really positive, is that we've managed to talk a lot more with our members. We have kind of like 4 weekly Zoom meetings with different people, different groups of people, and it has made us a really strong network, and we are all working on a national scale together, which is really a lovely thing to have experienced over the last few weeks and months. One of the things that we've been discussing, and it came up very early on, because working with creatives don't sit still, they want to create something and put it out there for people, and you can't stop that. And one of the things we've been talking about doing is how to connect with those people, our communities, and the hyperlocal, of which rural touring is, in villages, being managed by people who live there for their neighbours. a lot of the time. And how do we stay connected with those, bearing in mind a lot of them are from the older generation, people are in isolation, people have really bad broadband in rural areas, some don't have access to computers and are less digitally literate than others. So how do we connect with those people? So we're talking about offline offers that still maintain that feeling of participatory events and that intimate feeling you get from going to a live event. And how do you recreate that? And that's a kind of been our provocation from very early on since lockdown. And some of those things we've some of the things that are coming out, I was talking earlier to Francois and everyone about a big long list we've got about of things that can achieve that. And I'm going to look at a way of sharing that publicly. I won't be able to do it now because I'm talking and I can't multitask that well. But I will try and share. And some of those are things like plays by phone and plays on postcards, drive-ins, roving outdoor performances in communities, flatbed theatre, which I loved that idea, and using Alexas and things like that to really communicate, radio, TV and those things that you would find people using who didn't have access to online. So some of those, and those are also the learning from that is what we want to capture, and that's something that we'd like to take on and not lose when, if things go back to some way of normal or a new normal or whatever that might look like. We want to maintain that accessibility to the arts, that this is really showing up, and how to get and share those people. With those people, so that's really what we've been doing. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Clive, would you want to come in? You're muted.
I just wanted to add that there are a couple of things. One of the things that I know I mentioned it briefly earlier, but one of the things that we're doing is producing a festival with London Borough of Newham called Newham Unlocked, and that's going to be a festival where the action takes place in real time. So we're going to actually go either film events in real spaces or stream them from real spaces, not have audiences, but get away from people in their bedrooms and sort of hopefully we're commissioning new work and putting out old work, work which is existing that's been commissioned by people like Greenwich and Docklands. So it's real good quality work all around Newham, because Newham also needs that sense of celebration, because we are one of the hardest hit areas in the UK for the C19. So we want to sort of really unlock and show that we're actually out there. Another project I'll mention is a project with the Posh Club and Arts the LM, and it's a telephone sing-along with Helen MacDonald, which is happening now, and older people can ring up and they can have a one-to-one sing-along with Helen, and that's launched this week. So it's a different way of using low tech to sort of reach new audiences and stuff.
Thank you, Clive. Just on the basis of your audience question, how are you communicating with your communities that you've worked with in the past or currently and developing them?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
It's a good question, and a lot of it is Facebook, digital, etc. One of the things that we've pushed for is producing old school leaflets and posters and stuff, because it's great. This is the same sort of thing. It's great to say everybody's online and we can do all the social media and stuff, but we don't want to forget a lot of the people that will pick up a leaflet, will see a poster and a flyer and would engage like that. So, okay, you might not use that much social media, but if you see a link and you know how to use a browser and that, you can engage. Because the one way we've got is a lot of people that aren't on Twitter, don't use Facebook that much. They might sort of search for stuff or watch TV online, will be missed. So I'm really pushing the local authority to use really old school. I'm sorry, the power of an old leaflet or a poster, you can't overlook, really.
Thank you. That's brilliant. So I've got a question for Daze. So we all know that due to the COVID situation, there's been some positive environmental changes during lockdown. And just the question is, how could these be maintained going forward as lockdown eases?
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of give ourselves a pat on the back about how we've lowered pollution. But I think the only way this can really be maintained is by asking, especially local authorities and governments, to start doing stuff. Like, for example, I live in Lewisham and I live very close to the incinerator, and during COVID-19, the incinerator has not been burning, and this has affected the air quality in my area, and I love it, and lots of people have noticed it. And once you've noticed how good it can be, it means that we should actually push for it to be even better. We have to also see like the realistic and the bigger view of this as well, with I think the statistic is it's actually only gone down by 5% in the UK. So we're seeing such difference with 5%. Imagine what 20% looks like. Imagine what 30% looks like. And this is where we have to start looking at corporations and the pollution that they're causing. This is why we need to start getting governments to basically tell people like Coca-Cola that they can't keep polluting our earth.
So do you have any particular like tips or techniques for our participants that are watching right now in terms of engaging with their peers, but also in terms of outdoor arts?
Yeah, I think at Extinction Rebellion Youth, we have so many amazing creatives, which we're so thankful for. As you can see, some of our artwork as well, and some of the campaigns that we've been running over this time. I think one is making sure that you tell the story, and I think that's where arts come in so well. It's telling that story of how it feels to breathe clean air for the first time, how it feels to smell the sea, how it feels to see a sea without plastic pollution, and being able to tell these stories so people can understand what it really means to us. And also talking of like lower tech ideas, I think the greatest way is that letter that you write to your MP and making sure that they know they're being held to account. And a more like advanced and savvy way that we've been actually piloting is the Twitter storm. So getting a bunch of your friends to bombard one person's Twitter and tell them what they're doing wrong, creating hashtags and really letting the polluters know we are holding you by account and we're doing this directly.
Brilliant, thank you. So I've got a question for Sam. In terms of the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening within the UK, but also worldwide, how do you see that arts and different arts organisations responding to these events?
Oh, I mean, like, I think particularly around the Black Lives Matter, particularly for the UK, we have a responsibility to really understand and deconstruct how our police force, how our healthcare, how our education is really built on systemic racism, and I think that we have to really kind of really be able to know the names of those who have died in prison. I think this is like, and within detention centres, and it's happening today, and we have to really analyse particularly around what is the real purpose of kettling at protests, because they are a really systematic approach to co-opt narrative, to actually make peaceful protests of social outrage to become actually criminalized. So this is where the arts can come in. This is how we can actually hold re-co-opt our own narrative. That is the most inspiring thing that we can do, because we hold the heart, we hold the intelligence, and we hold the future in the way we actually depict that through music, through all kinds of different forms of art, through slogans, through lyrics, through poetry, you know, and populating the world with this kind of really a sense of clarity around injustice, but actually how we envision the new world. If we deconstruct and know what we don't want, we really need to occupy what we do want to see and what behaviors that we feel is representative of the society we want to live in. And we can't really be co-opted or imprisoned by the narratives of those who don't want us to change, because there is a sea of people who don't want us to change, and they are frightened of change. They don't trust the public that the change that we perceive is actually the change that actually we need to have. So I think this is really profound and extraordinarily exciting. I think COVID for me, which I didn't say what I found was positive, is flushing up all of the areas that actually the system is fragile and broken, and it's making it visible, the invisible of those who are trying to silence, because there is a systematic, so I've been working with the, or supporting the key journalists who for over the 10 to 15 years have been documenting the deaths of those in institutions, you know, and I think that we have to be really aware that, you know, we have to own the story. And I can also tell you just really quickly, so the positive thing is flushing out the fragility. The other positive thing is showing there's a sea of desire of change. And that is amazing. That is phenomenal. And within that change, we're saying society is more important than economics, that we want to trade ideas, we want to trade visions, we want to trade kindness, we want to do the trade, which is the co-op version of that. Trade has been co-opted by economics. We want to trade bread, we want to trade our work, but we don't want to have this economic system that is actually built on human cruelty. So, and I think that's amazing. So that's my thing.
Thanks, Sam. I've just got another question for you in terms of being an artist. Do you think artists, especially with the outdoor arts, are becoming a lot more bolder and stronger in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and voicing their own racism that they've experienced within the arts or other organizations?
I think the thing is about systemic prejudices and abuse and racism and misogyny, because misogyny is equally as violent within it, and also around gender. I think the thing is, when you look at institutional racism, we have to, institutional racism actually prevents society growing. That it doesn't matter if you're personally not racist, the reality is we're always reverted back into a racist stance because of systemic racism. Now, for me personally, we have to question ourselves, and we have to question every single institution on how it's built and constructed, including those who how things are funded. Like, you know, and I think that is that, and I think artists and the people who are occupying on the front line and experiencing this on the front line have to hold the platform of change. They have to hold the compass. That is not negotiable for me or for anybody who is aware of the profound capacity of activists on the front line. And I think that the arts is the amplifier of that. It is the compass of that. It has a huge it's not a byproduct. It is the product. It is it. That is how society knows who they are. It's society's identity. And it is don't kid yourself because you're underfunded. Don't kid yourself because actually it's hard to get a wage. It is the most important job. I promise you, for me, it's the most important job because it holds the human spirit and human philosophy.
Thank you, Sam. I'm just going to pass it on to Thelma, who's got a question for everyone.
Okay, so my question is for everyone. And you were talking, Sam was just talking about the fragility being flushed out and how artists need to be the compass which directs basically the world into developing and becoming better. I just wanted to understand, what can you do, especially for young people who are probably the most vulnerable and the most impacted due to COVID? What are you going to do, and what have you been doing for young people who are likely to find it hard to acquire jobs and also training?
Can I come in on that, Thelma? You know, obviously this is a really important issue, and you know, but for me and for EEA, you know, it's not so much doing stuff for young people; it's working with young people to give them a platform to create something meaningful, and that also, you know, it is helpful in terms of their own personal and professional development. I mean, something I've been reflecting on recently is our young producers network at EEA. Of course, Thelma, Shazia, you're part of that network. And I think going forwards, we're definitely going to want to make even stronger that strand of work at EEA. And I've also just personally, been reflecting on, for us probably, but the largest single project that we've had, which has a very strong young producer strand, is Paper Peace, which was our project to mark the armistice over 2018 through 2019. And there, we were able, with partners, to put together a national programme that popped up in towns and cities across the UK, and gave young people an opportunity to create meaningful art and events. That is also, supported as part of a national programme. And for me, I'm thinking, that's a kind of collectivist and participatory and an empowering model that we can really look at opportunities to use going forward. But there has to be some kind of digital spin too. I haven't quite worked that one out, but just to emphasise for us, it is working with, and I'm sure there are great models that each of our organisations can look at amplifying moving forward in order to work with young people.
Thank you very much. And following on from that, I actually have another question. So this is open as well. Do you think it's important to, this is actually in the chat, do you think it's important to have cultural or artistic mediators who are based in school and can therefore help with in terms of tolerance and citizenship, etc.? And I think Clive wants to say something.
Yeah, it wasn't quite about the mediators, but it was definitely about, young people in the arts, etc. A lot of the things is using this sort of period of, especially when we've gone into Black Lives Matters, into agitation, to actually develop your own work and develop your own voice. Because one of the things that where I got into it, and I'm sort of wearing a t-shirt, and that was the things like Rock Against Racism and events. I mean, I started promoting because it was as much about a political voice as it was about, oh, this is going to be a career. It was about to say something. It was, nobody else was saying it. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the internet at the time, where you didn't have as much social media. I have to admit, I'm that old that you didn't have that. So the way to do it was to put on shows, to put on comedy, to put on cabaret shows. Cabaret, which I work on in as a history of being agitprop and taking small and large and political steps. Jazz, which I'm really into. We call Certain Blacks after a company called Art Ensemble Chicago. And they used their sort of jazz voice to question some of the civil rights things that were going on. And I think this is one of the time to develop your own work in your own voice, to really get it out there rather than waiting for us lot to give you a voice. That's when you want to kick in the doors and put your own work on, really. And I'd quite happily promote some of you guys.
Thank you. And Daze?
Yeah, I totally agree with Clive. I think this time has been so interesting. I go to Goldsmiths, and lots of my friends takes really serious art courses, unlike me. I take history and politics, and just seeing the beauty in their work, how they've almost created, they have created beauty out of this struggle. They've learned how to use materials that they have at home. They've learned how to, one of my friends during lockdown, she went out and did theatre all by herself to no audience, and recorded it. And seeing this kind of celebration of culture in such hard times, I think young people should really embody that and use this time to kind of express the grief and trauma, especially in relation to Black Lives Matter, and really explore the ideas of our identity, our gender, ourselves through art. And this is the perfect time to do so.
Thank you, Clive and Daze.
Yeah, so I've just got
sorry, I can see Pax waving his hand, and then we'll come to Shazia. Go on, Pax.
I was just going to add, Reed, I think it's two things that's been mentioned here. See, the thing relating to the youth. I personally find that when I was thinking about this the solution and things that we can take from this crisis, the youth has been a very challenging thing for me. I can give you an example, like my grandson, he was so smart, he always insisted on having very smart clothes. At the moment, whenever I speak with him, he's got no shirts or anything on him. So to start saying you have to go back to school again, that's another big challenge. The second thing I was going to say, you know, I'm mixing youth and, you know, Black Lives Matter and issues like that. In the past, I think, you see, there is organization that try so hard to be addressing some of these issues to a point where it becomes too much for those people they're trying to help. Example, the Black community. And then there's organizations like EEA, they don't even know they're doing it. Like right now, if you look on the scale of images here, you'll find that the Black people are actually, there's 4 of us here. And there is 5 of us, I think. And then 3, 4 of the, you know, other cultures. Most organizations don't even notice that. And the ones who are doing well, like EEA, you don't even notice you've done this. Most places I've been going to a lot of Zoom meetings and the only token Black person there. The second thing is we can't talk about Black lives not involving Black people. Same thing with the youth. I've been to a lot of things. I used to work for the Askans for 10 years. We'll sit here and discuss a youth program and I look around, there's no youth there. Yeah. So I'm saying if you're going to change these things we need to really look at them seriously. And I think now, thinking about it, even the issue of saying race and so on, as I said, there is organizations like EEA who don't try, it happens naturally. And some of those other organizations that don't do it, I promise you now, they're going to be trying so hard to a point where it becomes annoying for us Black people. That's it.
Thank you, Pax. So I've got a question for all of the group as well. So I'm from Yorkshire, and every time I've come down to London, I've always seen a difference between the North and the South in terms of art resources, and it's a huge difference. So what can we do to give the regions, especially the North, a better deal now in terms of art resources?
Well, we're all about the regions and balancing out the opportunity from London-centric funding to all the regions of the country and to all the people out of towns and cities, because there's so many barriers to going to larger institutions to see work, and that's time, economics, and also feeling like you're not represented or you're not welcome there. So there's lots of social barriers as well. So, and that's something that Rural Touring is really passionate about balancing. So we're doing quite a lot of work. We do lots of work with young people as well. And just going back to that one, we've got some young promoter schemes, and they really feed into lots of the things that the Rural Touring does. So we're all about balancing that out and taking professional work to the people rather than the people to the professional work, which actually works out to be a lot greener and sustainable in terms of touring and our carbon footprints as well. So we are quite proactive in the green agenda as well.
Thank you, Holly. We'll go to Pax and then we'll go to Clive.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think in terms of rural areas, I've worked there a lot. I've been also an Arts Council assessor. And I think in the past, it's like, for example, Black Voices were asked to go and do something in a hospice in the middle of nowhere in Exeter. I went there as an assessor. And when I walked in, of course, I was the only Black person apart from Black Voices, because they're Black Voices. And I was in a church. I was actually aware people were not comfortable with me being there. And I was just saying, we're talking about the positive and negative things of some of this, like this Black Lives Matter. Personally, I actually believe if I went now to the same village and sat in there, they won't be as uncomfortable as they were before. So I'm just saying there's some changes happening there beyond our control.
So a lot of the work we do as an NRTF, we do a showcase every year that our key thing in that is to be a place where diverse work can be found and shown and taken back to the programming hubs around the country. It's in everything that we do, in the awards that we give to young people and diverse work as well. So we really try to embed it in everything that we do in our organisation.
Thank you, Holly. What were you going to say, Clive?
Yeah, I was going to talk about the work in the regions. I started my career in the regions in Newcastle. And one of the reasons that I created so much work was it was tough. It was like I'll be honest, right? I never knew that there was no black people in Newcastle when I went up there, you know, and I was in for a shock. So a lot of us ended up producing, making work to readdress that. Working with a lot of the Asian community that up there, which was the biggest community, developing our work, developing our sound systems and stuff. Culture there and culture in the regions, culture has been used in a big way to regenerate that area because it was poor. It's got the sage there, you've got the Baltic there. It's been seen a lot of investment, but it still needs to. I mean, it's a microcosm of the rest of Britain. I'm not sort of saying that's just that. It's a microcosm of the rest of the UK. That, you know, UK institutions need to diversify up. They need to get out more. You know, they need to get the work out to the regions, and that happens in those areas as well. So they need to open the doors as well. But there does need to be regional investment, definitely.
Thank you, Clive. We'll go to Sam.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring up the fact that there's a shifting kind of a desire. And whereas cities were always a place to come to for the vibrancy of creativity, you know, with like climate change and the climate emergency, as well now as COVID, there's a whole different sense of desire to move out of cities and actually to repurpose and connect with the land and the environment and to put your fingers in the soil. The issue is actually the government and the local authorities haven't caught up to that. Actually, a lot of young people are really desiring to hold a practical sense of like self-sustainability and kind of being more in charge. And also they're being told that they have to have multiple jobs and not singular jobs. They're being told that actually jobs are not even a guarantee in their future. So they're like, how do I want to live? Like if I don't have to have a career, what is the style of my life that I want to kind of include, you know, for my life to hold? So there is this new massive kind of desire to move out of cities, and we need to lobby the government to incorporate that desire into where the funding will be going. There needs to be actually a direct lobbying towards councils, towards the government, saying actually cities are not going to be the only future in our future. And I think that is kind of really, as there's going to be a migration out of cities, I really do feel that that could occur. And that could also be really beneficial to, say, London, because it opens up more space, more access to land, and more capacity to house, or at least we can fight for justice for land accessibility. So I think that is also interesting, personally.
Thank you, Sam. We're nearly up to our hour, so I want to thank everybody who's contributed such an inspiring and lively conversation, and particularly thank Thelma and Shazia for the fantastic job that you guys have done. We'll just, before we go, just go around and say if there's any last word from any of the panelists, and also from Shazia and Thelma, if you want to say anything to the audience before. We've got a couple of minutes just to say our goodbyes and any last words.
I'll give it, yeah, and I'll give it to the panelists first.
I was going, if you don't mind, I was going to just say that it's been really good to have these conversations. And there's a lot of stuff we've mentioned here. We could spend days and days discussing. I think, but the most one that really strikes me that I know people are not thinking much. You know, some we're talking about land accessibility. People are going to be leaving London, going out of town. But I mean, I don't know, Clive is still working in the Arts Council. There really have to be a way of dealing with these buildings. There's going to be, so you see, we artists, we struggle so much to get buildings. They are very expensive. All I know is after this whole thing, there's a lot of companies closed. There's going to be a lot of buildings. We're talking about young people. That's the place where they could be thinking. But if the funders like Arts Council and DCMS don't put money into these buildings that are going to sit there, which we artists would want to use, then I think we'll struggle. But if they did that, it's going to be another change for us artists.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just sort of just for me to say thank you so much to all my fellow panelists, because I have learned a lot from this discussion. I've been taking notes, and there's loads of stuff I'm going to be following up on, and hopefully participating in some of your events and initiatives. So thank you, it's been wonderful.
And in the chat, I've seen some of the things about regional stuff, and there has been a lot of projects around the country. I don't know if we're off, have gone, but including the Creative People and Places, and investment that's gone there, and there's things like Celebrating Age, with all of which have sort of support for things which are more out in the regions and more close to the ground, and audience focused, etc. So yeah, I'm not sure we're still on anymore though.
We are on. We are on.
Yeah.
I'll give the last words to Shazia and Thelma.
I was just about to say, yeah, it's been a brilliant opportunity to be here and listen to various panelists. So yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say that the panelists had some very unique comments, which shall definitely be taken on board, and it was great to have a personal insight into your individual industries.
Thank you all very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. And
bye, thanks for having us.